just enjoy the show. Godless, heathen, fatherless and seething. Take me to your power cord and watch me glow. Susan's on the frenzy and Jeff is on the coke. I am inside of your walls right now, you can't escape me. Take your pills and keep on breathing, this is not a joke. Parasocial paranoia, I just wanna chill out. Put your tinfoil hat on, I am just a stupid bunny rabbit.
Silently I wait for love, but honestly it'll never come. In my room is where I'll stay, oh I won't go, oh I won't run. No one cares about this song, sincere my words yet I'm still wrong. Oh honey, I hope I say this right, I love you, you should stay tonight. My desires I must confess, I want you more and you want me less. So you just want one night and you'll go, oh girl please love me, I'm not a show. Being left alone is my greatest fear. Now it's in my face so clear, oh I need someone close to hold. Please love me, please don't go. Please don't go. Please don't go away from me. Honey, I might seem deranged, I can't promise that I won't change. I hope you see that I'm worthy enough to hold your hand and be your beloved too. Death is always there by your side at all times. The demons in the dark, they say that this is where I will decay. Oh, I don't wanna be here any longer. Oh, I wish I was a little more stronger to fight the voice inside my brain that tells me I am just insane. Oh, I need someone close to hold. Oh, please love me, please don't go. Please don't go. Please don't go. Silently I wait for love, but honestly it'll never come. In my room is where I'll stay, oh I won't go, I won't run. No one cares about this song, sincere my words yet I'm still wrong. Oh honey, I hope I say this right, I love you, you should stay tonight.
Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Live chat. Let's see. Where is the camera? This says camera. Is this the camera? Yes, it is. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's your boy. It's me. It's the one. It's the only. It's the Commander Radix. It's been so long since I've talked in front of a camera. So, how are we doing? How are we doing? Are we feeling good? I can hear you. Excellent. Omega Maximus is there. Hello there. Hey yeah. What's going on? That's definitely how you wanted me to read that, right? Hello, Omega Maximus. Nice to see you here. Transformers English Entertainment Studios. What an awesome surprise. Perfect time for a stream. What time is it over there for you, Transformers English Entertainment Studios? Because I kind of given up on thinking of the best time for streams for people in like America, because American time and my time just does not work. There he is. I can hear you. Nice clothes. Thank you. I robbed them off of a dead guy. Okay. How we doing? We're doing good. We're doing well. It's 10:30 p.m. Okay. All right. Now we're cooking with Crisco. That's a good time. I very rarely stream at good times for Americans, but here we are. Okay. So, first things first, my voice might sound a little weird. It definitely feels weird in my head to my ears right now because I'm just getting over a multi-day cold fever thing. I was doing just fine, and then I think I like choked on a piece of dust in the air, and then that took me out for like a week. It was bad. But I am alive. I'm here. I'm still recovering. I might go into a big coughing fit. This stream will be the most I have talked in the past 4 days. So please bear with me. However, after spending like 4 days doing nothing, I feel energized. I want to do things, right? So that's why we get the surprise stream here. Or at least that's where I've conjured up the energy to do a surprise stream for us here today. Now, there are also some other purposes, other causes for this stream. Think of Aristotle, think of the 4 causes, right? We talked about one cause being the energy wanting to be released after being sick for 4 days. The other cause is I do have something to talk about here today, and that is, how do you choke on air? Skill issue, Transformers English Entertainment Studios. I have a skill issue. So, that's my problem. So, I wanted to talk to you about a few things, because it's been a hot minute since the last video, especially since we were uploading fairly regularly up until suddenly, bam, there was a pause, right? And for those of you who only follow me on YouTube, you might have thought I just disappeared, even though I've been pretty active on... Well, I have uploaded a video on Radix the Lore Keeper, so that channel does have a new video if you haven't checked that out yet, on metaphysics, on the metaphysics of being. And I've been very active on Twitter, too active on Twitter, actually. But I wanted to fill in the guys on the Commander Radix sphere who only follow the Commander Radix channel, just to sort of know what's going on, where have I been, what have I been doing, what's the plan for the future. And if you don't follow me on Twitter or anything, you don't really know about anything. Which, by the way, follow... You know what? X. I'm calling it X. I should get out of the habit of calling it Twitter. It is X. And I think X has earned the right to be called X at this point in time. So I am going to declare it here and now, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to be calling Twitter X. I know I was very reluctant to the change of calling it Twitter, but we're calling it X now. It's X. That doesn't flow well in conversation, but whatever, okay? So if you don't follow me on X, you might not know what's up. I highly recommend you follow me on X. If you aren't following me on X, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to hunt you down. I'm going to kill you. Can I say that on YouTube live? I don't know. So this is partly a chill stream, just relaxing, talking to you guys since it's been a while, but also a little bit of a check-in, a little bit of me telling you what's been going on. Okay. Mr. Freaky Zero says, so first, did you watch TF1 after it got released, 8:39 in Finland? Oh, hello, the Finnish people. I have not watched Transformers 1. Transformers English Entertainment Studios. When is the next Q&A? Technically, if you think about it, this is kind of like a Q&A, right? You just asked a Q. I'm giving you an A right now. So technically, it's a Q&A right now. When is the next Q&A? That's something I want to talk about. Probably soon. I've already prepared all the questions for it. Hi, hello, Common X. How are you doing, Common X? I hope you're doing well. How the history? I don't know what that means. How the history? Yes. Yes. Okay. So, a few things. So, I think my last video upload was like in July or June or somewhere abouts. If you don't know, if you weren't following me on X, I was able to visit my hometown, my family in the United States for the first time in 5 years this summer, which was fun, which was dank, which was pretty epic, pretty based, pretty red-pilled. But I was able to do that, and that destroyed the entire upload schedule of this channel, because I went over to America. Because first, the flights, the travel from here to my hometown is a nightmare. Because it basically comes down to, including walking by foot, traveling by car, monorail, airport, car, the entire traveling portion takes about 30 hours, and that's just the traveling part. That doesn't include the time spent in layovers. So it took me well over 30 hours, probably around 35 hours straight, between when I left my apartment in Japan and when I got to the door of my house in America. That's 35 hours straight. And another fun fact is I cannot sleep on planes. So, because I cannot sleep on planes, that was a very painful experience. Okay. But then I was in America for 2 weeks-ish. And then after those 2 weeks, another 35-hour nightmare, right? So, the summer taken by that, okay? Then after that, I needed about 3 weeks to just readapt to, the jet lag, the amount of travel, how tired I was. So there's that, which was pretty painful. Ed's Bread, the profound retard himself. Just a quick check-in and check-out. I am very sleepy, but good to see you. It's excellent to see you as well, Ed's Bread. How do I refer to you? If your YouTube name is Ed's Bread, but your Twitter name is Profoundly Retarded Peacemaker and or Berserker, I don't know how to refer to you when we're off the Twitters, the X space. I'm sorry, I went on a speech about how I'm calling it X now, not Twitter, and old habits. Do you have any video to prove that you were in America? No. Okay. Let's see. I'm sorry, I meant how's the history studying going? It's going pretty well. It's going pretty based. It's going as it ever goes. Have you seen the video saying TF1 is the greatest movie in your recommended, and how do you think they're over-exaggerating? Well, they're definitely over-exaggerating. And this is coming from someone who hasn't seen the movie, but there's no way it's the best movie ever. The Transformers fandom on X has pissed me off a lot. And when I say the Transformers fandom on X has pissed me off a lot, I really mean one specific account has pissed me off a lot. And that's the, well, I don't have to name him. You probably already know, but it's the guy that keeps going on. YouTube name is from 10 years ago. X name is only a couple years old, but whatever is fine. Peace, profound I don't want to call you the profound retard. Profound peacemaker. Okay. The TF hype guy. There we go. That guy, listen. I haven't articulated my feelings into words about this. But the point in short is that guy is such a consumer. CONSOOMER. Such a consumer. Look, if your only source of happiness comes from the product of a brand, we have a problem. And I said, yeah, we have a problem because you're in the society and we have to share a society. You know, I don't like this whole argument you see sometimes like, well, how does this affect you personally? Like, we're in a society, right? We have to share a society. We have to work together. You know, if we were in a hunter-gatherer system and if Mr. Ugg just spent time, you know, writing fanfics about, well, that's a bad example, but like just obsessed over like one thing that doesn't really matter and isn't hunting the food and isn't doing anything, isn't protecting people that need to be protected. It's kind of a useless person. I haven't spoken English in a long time also, so there's that. I know my speaking isn't going to be smooth this stream. Please bear with me. One source of happiness should not come from the product of a brand. There is much, much more to life than fandom. And it's okay to enjoy fandom. It's okay to enjoy a piece of a product from a brand. The problem is figuring out the right balance. And the fact of the matter is there's a lot we need to balance in our lives. Especially when we're no longer children. And I hope to God that guy is not... Well, how should I say it? If he's a child, then it makes sense. If he is not a child, I am very concerned. Because we need to be doing some things in our lives, with our lives, doing something productive. Maybe even having a Twitter account that's focused on a fandom that you want to go on every now and then to post some Transformers stuff. Okay. Sure. Got it. That is not what that guy is doing. That guy is... his brain is so consumer. And look, even if you like a movie, the way you get people to watch a movie is not by just going up and saying, watch this movie. You don't just say, watch this movie. That's not how you sell something to someone. You have to give them a reason to watch it, especially when people have a lot going on in their lives. I think about the movies I've watched and the movies I've enjoyed, and never have I watched those movies because someone said, watch this. And I said, oh, okay, you got it, sir. You got it, boss. I'm gonna go watch that movie right now. That's never happened. Ever. Now, if someone says, hey, this movie, I know you like history, this movie has focused a lot, and I'm not talking about Transformers 1 at this point in time, this movie has a strong, deep respect for the way of thinking of the time period. It doesn't put anachronistic themes or thinking into a historical plot. It pays a lot of attention to the historical accuracy of the material and also into the spiritual beliefs of the people of that time period. I'm going to go, wow, that sounds pretty good. And then that's how I ended up watching The Northman, right? The Northman. I love The Northman. Great movie, The Northman. It's the greatest movie. It's the greatest movie of all time. Believe me. You get the point. The Northman was a good movie. I didn't watch it because someone said, go watch The Northman. I watched it because I saw people talking about The Northman. They were saying things that I like, things that were appealing, and things that ultimately made me go, okay, yeah, I'll take, 2 hours of my time to watch this movie, and I don't regret it. 1917. I have a big interest in World War I. Right, 1917 was like the 100th year anniversary film, not 100th, yeah, 100th, it was about 100 years, the 100th year anniversary of the war, you know, sort of paying respect to the people who fought in the war, which is something that matters, right, and it also is a character-centered plot. It has a lot of themes that are relevant to, that can be transposed from World War I onto individuals. Not only that, there was also this filmmaking sort of experiment in making the movie more or less one long shot, right? The amount of practical effects they put into it. It sounded, when I hear people talking about 1917, it sounded really good. And I went and watched 1917, and you know what? Loved it. Loved 1917. Great movie. if you just say this movie good, right? Like, okay, all right, why should I watch it though, right? You can't even say like you like Transformers, right? It's Transformers movie, it's good, watch him. Like that's, I don't like Transformers because it's Transformers. Does that make sense? I don't like Transformers because that is what it is. I like Transformers for a multitude of reasons that are more complex than just saying it's Transformers, which mean it good, right? That's not how it works, right? This is the difference between a consumer mindset and a normal mindset, where a consumer is going to think that, oh, it has the character I like. I don't care if the writer is completely different, if the plot's completely different, if half the other characters have been reimagined in some new way, but it's just got the character in it, and that means I'm going to love it, right? I love Batman. I love Batman. Does that mean I'm going to like every single Batman comic? Methinks nar. Methinks nar, man. The two things I see with Transformers 1 that people recommend it for. One, that it looks good. And I will say this, Transformers 1 looks visually outstanding. Okay? It looks very well done from the animation side. The characters, I have mixed feelings about the designs, but the aesthetics and animation, that is out of the water. Even looking at the trailers, I thought it didn't look interesting, but it did look good. It did look, and I don't mean, oh, that looks like a good movie. I mean, visually, it looks like a good, like the animators put a lot of effort into that. Okay, that's not enough for me to go watch a movie, though. Right? You can have a terrible story that's beautifully animated. I'm not saying Transformers 1 is a terrible story. I haven't watched it, mind you. The point is, I have found no reason to watch it. Okay? Secondly, it's emotional. It has emotions. Wow, there were so strong emotions in Transformers 1. Oh, there's emotions. Like, dude, that is the bare minimum. Like, that is something that is inherent to the concept of a story, that it has to have some level of emotion to it. You can't tell me that you should watch this movie because the characters have emotions. Are you so starved for good media, for good fiction, that the only thing you need to sell you on watching a movie is that it has emotions in it? Oh, am I getting hacked by the CIA? Yes. Okay. So, saying it has emotions in it, that tells me that you don't have anything else to say besides that there's emotions in it. So, when I see people on X going around saying, watch this movie, right? People saying, don't watch Joker 2, watch this movie. Here's a fun fact. You can watch neither. That's an option available to you. This is why, for the past over a year now, I read, I think reading is very important, especially reading classical texts. And when you read classical texts, you realize, oh, fiction today, good fiction today is rare. That's how I'll put it. Good fiction today is rare. And when you read classical texts, you realize that there's more to fiction, more to writing than just characters and emotions. You realize the importance of deep symbolism. You realize the importance of cultural literacy, things like that. I don't know. The people on X were just really annoying, and I'm kind of not watching the movie out of spite just because of that. Okay. Let's see. I've been learning Japanese myself. I think I'm making progress, but it's pretty slow. 頑張ってください。仮面 X なら必ずできると思うよ。You can do it. Yareba dekiru. You can do it if you try. So good luck. Have you seen the videos where women are crying and being crazy because of Mr. Trump? Oh, you know. You know I've seen those videos. I've certainly seen those videos. The hype guy's in marketing school now, so oh no. The hype guy's in marketing school? The hype guy doesn't know how to market. Do you plan on getting married and have a family? That's the goal. That's the end goal, right? The designs do grow on you. They might grow on you. They might not grow on me. Get what you mean. These days I tend to focus more on the creators making the work than if it's a brand I like. I don't really like things that are a brand these days. If it's a brand, that kind of tells me to stay away from it. And yes, that doesn't mean all fiction within a brand today is going to be bad, but the statistic likelihood that it's going to be bad is significantly higher than if you read a classical work. If you are not reading classical texts, classical literature, you are missing a big part of a balanced life. That's what I'll say. So that's important. You guys need to be reading the Iliad. You guys need to be reading the Odyssey. Right now I'm currently reading Soren Kierkegaard's book, his sort of treatise. It's short for a book, long for an essay, of The Purity of Heart is to Will One Thing. And it's great. It's been great so far. So consider reading. I hope to be making a video later on in the year about my favorite books that I read in 2024. Look forward to that. Plushies DX. Hello, Plushies DX. Welcome to the stream. Glad to see you here. Some people's meltdown about Joker 2 was kind of funny. They think Joker 1 was the greatest and most influential film ever. Joker 1 was a pretty good film. I liked Joker. I think there are good arguments to say that the Joker in the Joker film isn't really the Joker character from DC. That's fair. I think Joker stands on its own as a film, and I think it's really good, really good. Joker 2 looked like trash. From what I heard of it, sounds like trash. So, I haven't really been keeping up with that. Okay. So, where were we? We were talking about, I had just come back from America and needed like 3 weeks to recalibrate. So that basically brings us to September. What was going on in September? Why was I not doing something in September? Let me tell you, I gained weight in America like crazy. And that certainly did not help my mental health. So, I probably spent a long time going, oh, I'm so fat. Let's see. I'm looking at my journal to sort of remember what was I doing. And I have an entry here. Wednesday, the 28th of August, AD 2024, the feast day of St. Augustine of Hippo. I looked into the gate of hell today. And that's all I wrote. What did I mean by that? I know what I mean by that. I went to, there's a cave, in where I live, where the Japanese Imperial military commanders committed suicide at the end of the battle that was here. And I went and looked into that cave, and it was creepy. Let's see. There's also the fact that one of our cats passed away while I was in America, and I was kind of depressed after that for a while. Then, later September, I'm spending a lot of time trying to balance my life because I kind of went through a whole reset after the America trip. And then October was a really busy month. And basically, things are only getting good here in early November. So that's why I wasn't really making much. But I wanted to say that I haven't been doing nothing. I have been doing some things. I've actually been doing a lot of work on YouTube stuff. It's just none of it has come out yet. And I hope when it does come out that you'll see, this is why Radix disappeared for half a year, right? Like, that's pretty good. That's pretty dang. That's pretty dope. That's pretty bass. That's pretty red-pilled. So I hope we'll talk more about that later. Let's go through chat a little bit. I should read more classical works, to be honest, these days. I tend to read detective novels or pulp fiction. You know, first and foremost, reading, like, literature of any type, like any grade above comics, not to say comics aren't literature, but any level degree above comics, if you are reading, you're already a step above most people towards getting a more balanced life. I certainly think even at that level, pulp fiction, detective novels are good. But especially like the level of the novel, pulp fiction, already the patience to sit down and read a book is going to do more benefit to your mental health, emotional health, than a lot of the population, which usually just looks through reels, Instagram reels, YouTube shorts, TikTok, just on end. So I think you're doing good. You're doing good, Common X. Okay. Mr. Freaky Zero, the turn of D16 to Megatron and T-Phone was quite good to me, and the first movie talks about the 13 primes. Yeah, I remember when the multiverse existed. When the multiverse existed, the 13 primes were, like, really interesting, because they were spoken about in hushed voices. There were some characters that turned out to be 13 characters that you didn't realize were actually members of the 13, unless you read the supplementary material, like McAdam, Logos Prime, for example. And there was always this idea of the Fallen, and the Fallen pops up in Dreamwave for a little bit. It's like, cool. And then when Revenge of the Fallen was announced, it's like, oh, the Fallen's going to be the star of a movie, right? The big idea behind the 13 were that these were old multiversal singular characters, right? If the Transformers 1 talks about the 13 primes, I really don't care. It's an overused concept, especially now that the multiverse is over. There's really no point to it. 2, it's boring. Like, oh, okay, there were 13 guys, whatever. Like, in the multiverse days, like, these 13 guys were, like, they mattered. They were connected to Primus. They were created for the Grand Plan. They were multiversal singularities, right? But, like, if you're not in a multiversal singular universe, why really bother with the 13 primes? Why are you rehashing the same thing over and over and over, right? I don't know. Transformers 1, it looks to me, just, you know, as someone who hasn't watched it yet, it seems to be everything wrong with Transformers since the multiverse ended. I'll leave it at that. Transformers English Entertainment Studios. Some women are saying that we'll stop having sex because of Mr. Trump. Do you think this will last long and be good for men? As a Christian, I think abstinence is good. I think abstinence is good. I think abstinence outside of marriage is a must. So these people saying they'll stop having sex with men, it's like, okay, I'll toast to that. Excellent, good job. Do I think it will last for long? No, unfortunately, because it is ultimately a passion, and a passion, one, the surround still up. One, no. What do you mean, Mr. Freaky? Is my sound good? Is my audio good? But do I think it will be good for men? Yeah, although I would expect men to also participate in abstinence, right? In chastity, in self-control. Do I think it will last long? No, because it is a passion. Passions overtake self-control without the way you get rid of passions is through prayer. And these people are not participating in abstinence through prayer. I think they don't have self-control, so I do think I don't think it will last for long. Yeah. I forgot, did they ever fix the Transformer multiverse? Nope. The multiverse has been dead since 2015-ish. I say ish because technically there's still media attached to the continuities that were set in the multiverse, like the IDW G.I. Joe series, A Real American Hero, for example. Is that like the only media of the old Transformers multiverse that is still coming out on a regular basis is not IDW, I guess it's Skybound now. Skybound's G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero comics. One, the Shroud's still up. No, Ned, the Shroud's still up. Are you okay? Why do I misspell no every time? The Shroud is still up. The brand, the franchise, the company behind the media has no interest in getting rid of the Shroud. The fact that you remember the Shroud, they would think is probably impressive. But your audio is good. Thank you, Transformers English Entertainment Studios. Okay. So, what have I been doing? What have I been thinking during this whole process as far as the Commander Radix and associated channels are concerned? Or rather, the Commander Radix personality as we go forward. So, first, let's talk about content. Let's talk about the Commander Radix YouTube channel first and foremost. Our bread and butter, Transformers lore, and all associated series. So, I am kind of at the point where I am accepting the fact that I cannot create good videos on this channel on a schedule. It's unfortunate, I know. And I'm recognizing the fact also that if I give myself time, I can make pretty good videos with more detailed editing, with better research, better scripts, better narration, better everything. And I'm starting to think, why don't I just do that? If I can make better videos. So let's say I do try to focus more on the schedule thing. Inevitably, what the America visit has taught me, and keep in mind the fact that I'm always doing a lot of different types of traveling. The fact is, my life is not regular enough for me to do a regular schedule. Maybe monthly, but even then, I don't know. So, I'm thinking for my philosophy of making videos at this point in time, I am going to be focusing on quality over quantity. And I think, even if you're going, to that announcement, the fact of the matter is, I'm working on a Transformers lore video right now. I've been working on it for like the past 2 weeks. When that video goes up, you guys that might become your favorite Transformers lore video. And I think it'll also excite you for more things to come in the future. So look forward to that. With that in mind, I also understand that if I focus 100% on quality over quantity, this channel might upload like 6 videos in a year, and that's not good. That's not algorithmically good. That's not good for fostering a Commander Radix community, Commander Radix sphere, which is kind of what I want to do. Like, let me be real with you guys for a second. I love interacting with you guys more than I actually love making videos. I like I like talking to you guys. I like bouncing ideas off of you guys. I like hearing from you guys. And so the Commander Radix community has been really important to me. And I don't want to let that community kind of become just a flicker and not a live community if I just upload irregularly like that. So I think I should also upload some filler videos. I'm not entirely sure at this point in time how I'm going to balance it out. How I'm going to balance out between working on quality videos and more filler videos, more casual videos, just to keep the community alive. But will nevertheless be interesting. I'm not saying that these will be throwaway videos. These will be interesting videos. That's the thing. I'm trying to figure out how to balance it. I'm thinking spend about 2 weeks on a high quality video. If after those 2 weeks the high quality video isn't done yet, then the next week I'll spend working on a more lighter video and getting that out. I should hopefully get that done out in a week. And once I finish that, spend the rest of that week working on the high quality video. I'm thinking maybe something like that. So we'll have at least 2 or 3 videos a month I'm aiming for. Yeah. So that's sort of the idea. This philosophy is also going into the Radix the Lore Keeper channel. So the same way I'm making history and lore videos will be quality over quantity. research, editing. I recently, if you follow me on X, you might have seen recently that I posted the video that I've learned how to highlight areas of a map and color areas of a map and have that area move. Sort of like Dova Hadi's History of Rome videos where he has the Roman Empire grow. I've figured out how to do that. It just took me like an hour to figure out how to do that. But both History and Lore and Transformers Lore are sort of having a quality overhaul right now. They're having, I'm working on quality over quantity on those two things. Things like Transformers More Lore, things like community comments, those are going to be more lighter videos that I can put out when it's been a while since I've put out the last Transformers Lore video. History memes will be the equivalent of that on the Radix the Lore Keeper video channel. But that's sort of what I have in the back of my mind right now. Okay. What is a trustworthy source for American history? Some people are trying to change it for their own political agendas. Very good question. I do have an answer. First and foremost, what's more important than finding a reliable source is having a reliable background knowledge in American history. And most Americans don't have that. So I'm going to introduce to you, give me a second, I'll pull out a book that I love. Give me a hot minute to walk over to the bookshelf. Blue da boo dee da boo die, boo da boo dee da boo die, da boo dee da boo die. I'm blue da ba dee da boo die, do da boo dee da boo die, da boo dee da boo die. I'm blue da ba dee da boo da, ba da boo dee da boo da boo dee da boo die. I'm back. Okay. So first, you have to understand American history from the ground up. You can't just, not understand American, colonial history and then jump right into the civil rights movement and think you don't need that background knowledge. History is contiguous. It's continuity, right? It's all connected. There are so many layers to that question, Transformers English Entertainment Studios, that it's almost hard to give a concise answer. Because first, really, you need to understand people, history. You need to understand the classical worldview in order to understand the past. In order to understand the present, you need to understand the ideological and philosophical evolutions that have happened through history. But let's assume you understand the history of philosophy, you understand the history of ideology, which most people probably don't. They might think they do, but they don't. Let's understand you have that background knowledge. Let's get into American history proper. This is the most important American history book. Okay? It is called Albion's Seed: 4 British Folkways in America by Dr. David Hackett Fisher. It's a big one. It's a fairly big book. How many pages is this? It's 946 pages. But it is important because this book tells you the beginning of Americans, where Americans came from. It's basically a social history of Americans and American culture, or really how American culture begins, starting from Jamestown and going about to the American Revolution. But it's mostly focusing on the people and the way they thought. Okay? The biggest lie in American history, or about American history, is that Americans are a thing. And that might sound weird. What do you mean, Radix? What do you mean that it's weird? It's a lie to say Americans are a thing. They're certainly a thing, but it's hard to explain what an American is, and once you look into what an American is through this book, you'll realize that there isn't an American culture. There isn't like a one American thing. My camera's getting kind of blurry here. Please don't go blurry. I don't know. I highly recommend reading this book as your starting point. Now, what is the main point of this book? Notice the subtitle, 4 British Folkways in America. What you need to understand is that the origin of the Americans is not as simple as the English people went over from England and came over to America, and boom, they were Americans. And then, like, over time, they decided they didn't like British rule, and so they rebelled against England. They kicked out England, and then they created the United States of America and became Americans. That is not an accurate understanding of American history. And to this end, you kind of need to understand the history of England to really get this point. But there were 4 distinct waves of English people going to America. Those 4 distinct waves are very different waves. They have very different worldviews. They are coming from very specific places in England with their own specific cultures. And they went to very specific places in America. They didn't really mix that much. Okay? Now, one critique of David Hackett Fischer is that he's kind of oversimplifying. That's understandable when you realize this oversimplification needs to be understood. The principles need to be understood to understand American history in general. Your first major wave, not the first English in America, but the first wave of English migrants to come to America, are going to be the Puritans. They're going to be people from the Midlands. They're going to be people from East Anglia. And this is why you need to understand your English history. You need to understand your English geography. What about the Native Americans? Honestly, what about the Native Americans? If you want to understand American history, like modern America, they don't play a major role. They were very low in population. By the time the English arrived just across the continent, they didn't have a very high population density, and they started dying off really quickly once the English arrived. I guess the question is, what do you want to know about American history? Because American history is kind of big. I would again argue that understanding what Americans are is important first. The Native Americans didn't have an identity of being American before like the English showed up and said this is America, right? So the first we have the Puritans coming from East Anglia, coming from the Midlands. You have to understand their worldview. They are heavily influenced by the Protestant Reformation. They are heavily influenced by rationalism. They are heavily influenced by Calvinism, right? And so when they go to New England, mostly. They go to Boston. They go to Massachusetts, Connecticut, New England, right? And they have their own way of looking at the world. Then you have another wave, basically at the end of the English Civil War. And you have to understand what the English Civil War is to understand this wave of migration. But it's essentially a large-scale migration of royalists, of cavaliers, who are moving from mostly southern England, but these are aristocrats and their indentured servants who are moving to Virginia, right? And they are bringing with them a more traditional worldview. They're bringing with them a more aristocratic and royalist worldview, right? Sometimes you hear this thing of Americans by their nature are against monarchy. That is nonsense. One of the founding populations of the Americans were monarchists who were willing to pick up swords and fight and die in the name of monarchy, right? And they go to Virginia. The third major migration wave you have are the Quakers. You have to understand what the Quakers are. You have to understand what their worldview is. And they go into Pennsylvania. They go into New Jersey. Then the fourth and largest migration wave are going to be... It's hard to put a name to these people, but they are roughly the same people fundamentally, even though they might come from different areas. It's from southern Scotland, northern England, and northern Ireland. Genetically, these are all Anglo-Saxon groups. They have a very similar worldview and mindset. Fisher calls them the borderers. And the borderers are going to have their values, their way of thinking. They're going to move to the backcountry. They're going to move to Appalachia. They're going to move to basically anything that isn't the coastal part of the 13 colonies. And then Fisher is going to, let's see. Like, this chunk of the book is about the Puritans, right? He divides the book into four, just explaining what their culture is, their history, their worldview. And then he sort of, the last chapter is going to a look at all of American history through the lens of that sociology. Basically, ultimately, at the end of the day, this is kind of an oversimplification, but by the time we reach 1861, the Quakers and the Puritans have sort of unified into one sort of Yankee, we can call it, ethnic group. The Royalists and the Borderers have kind of solidified into a Southern ethnic group. And the biggest importance to understand the structure of American history is to understand the fact that, at least at its beginning, it was a Cold War in an alliance, a sort of Cold political war between two different ethnic groups, two different nations, the Yankees and the Southerners, inside the United States of America, which fundamentally was, in its framework, an alliance and not actually a country, up until you get to the Civil War, when that Cold War turns hot, okay? Then, at that point on, the United States of America, through the Yankee mindset, is being turned into more of the idea of a nation, that we are one nation called Americans, right? And they try to put that idea across the country. And the Southerners are kind of going to adopt that idea of being American, but what they consider being American is just the same thing that what being a Southerner is. They have two different ideas of being an American. And basically, from 1877 to let's say 1963, you have these two forces kind of back into a Cold War with each other. But yeah, well, you need to understand that first. The Southern people are fundamental to understanding the history of the United States, the history of America, and the Southern people are one of the most misunderstood ethnic groups in world history. To that end, I would strongly recommend, and I'm going to talk more about this book when I do my video about my favorite books that I read in 2024. I strongly recommend reading The Southern Tradition at Bay, A History of Postbellum Thought by Richard Weaver. This is a book basically all about explaining what exactly the Southern mindset is. He does so by taking a huge survey of Southern literature across time and across space, and sort of gives examples of everything about what the Southerners are and how do they think. This is a eye-opening text that really understands the Southerners. So I would highly recommend that. Once you have read those two books, then you are ready to engage with other pieces of American history. Even if the source isn't reliable, you will understand, oh, this source isn't reliable because they're following this line of thought. And since I've read those two books, I understand where this line of thought came from. But once you have that understanding of that line of thought, really you're able to engage with anything, even if it's completely biased. You understand why that's important. But I would also recommend, there's one YouTube channel that's done all the research that I really recommend as a source of American history. And that would be a historian by the name of Dr. Alan Harrelson. Dr. Alan Harrelson, one of my favorite content creators, one of my favorite YouTubers, one of my favorite historians. He actually recommended The Southern Tradition at Bay. I would recommend him. He has a YouTube channel called The Pipe Cottage, because ultimately he started his YouTube channel reviewing pipes, like tobacco pipes. It's a lot kind of like me, how I made a YouTube channel about Transformers lore, but really my biggest interest is in history, right? He likewise created a channel about smoking pipes. His big interest is in history, and history has kind of overtaken his channel about what he focuses about, okay? So I would recommend that. I would also recommend looking into older history books about specific states. Those can be good. As a North Carolinian, I'm very interested in North Carolinian society history. The Society in Colonial North Carolina by Alan D. Watson is pretty good. Books old books focusing on the older histories of states in general are going to be more reliable, I think, than any history book that kind of takes the idea of America as one nation. You kind of have to sift through a lot of stuff about, is that really true? When you get to those bigger idea books, but more focused books tend to be better. Right, I hope that helps your question. I hope that answers your question, Transformers English Entertainment Studios. I wasn't sure what you entirely mean by people trying to change American history for their own political agendas, but I would say if you want to understand the history of a... It's raining and I have my laundry outside. If you want to understand the history of a country, you need to understand what the people are first, and those books will give you help. It is raining. I'm going to run and put my laundry inside.
Everything sucks. Just kidding. Everything is great. No, really, I haven't thought about my ex today. Oh, wait. Fuck, I just did. But I went outside for the first time in a few days, and it felt nice, and I might try doing exercise. I wanna forget my bad days, all my bad days, and be okay, Spend my spare change down at the arcade, and then I'll say everything sucks. Just kidding, everything is better than it used to be. I didn't write a song about my ex today. Oh wait, but I called my friends and I told them we should hang out if it makes sense, 'cause I miss them and I hate being alone. Oh really? I wanna forget my bad days, all my bad days, and be okay, Spend my spare change down at the arcade, and then I'll say I wanna forget my bad days, all my bad days, and be okay, Spend my spare change down at the arcade, and then I'll say I wanna forget my bad days, all my bad days, and be okay, Spend my spare change down at the arcade, and then I'll say everything sucks.
Okay. And we're back. I love living in a country where we don't have drawing machines. Okay? Some people were saying that some Native Americans were non-binary, and that was what I was referring to. Okay, that's... What would help you there is if you understood the history of philosophy and the history of ideology, right? It's very easy to see how that's nonsense when you understand non-binary as a modern concept and cannot be applied to an ancient people, right? That's just simple logic, okay? It would be anachronistic to take that thought and put it onto a people before that thought existed, okay? That kind of falls into the logical issue where, oh, this person is doing something similar to Hitler, which means they are Nazis, right? Well, Nazi actually has a meaning. Like, words have meanings. National Socialism was an idea, right, that was formed, and it's hard to, like... I've seen some people call, like in the Acts of the Apostles, when the Apostles are kind of running a commune for a little bit. I've seen some people describe that as, see, the Apostles were communist. And we're like, well, communism wasn't a thing until, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels started putting it together, right? You can't anachronistically apply an ideology that did not exist to a process in people that happened before it, right? So that's a simple logic issue. That's not so much a knowledge of history, that's a knowledge of how philosophies and ideologies work. Okay. All right. I hear you, man. Quality over quantity. Fire, 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 fire. What's your research process when you study history? my research process when I study history, it depends, right? It really depends on what I'm studying. Ideally, I'll give you an example. It's kind of a peek behind the curtains, but the big history and lore video I'm working on right now, for the Radix the Lore Keeper channel, is the FBI hacking me? Yes. Is I'm looking at the first Great Awakening. The first Great Awakening in the American colonies. That's what I'm working on. Spoilers. And the way I went about researching that is I have a few reference books. I have a few books that go big into history. Well, I guess that's different. Do I research the same way in my spare time as I do for history videos? Yeah, it really depends on the subject. It really depends on the topic. Is it something I have no knowledge about and I want to get myself a base level knowledge on it? Is it something that I already have base level knowledge about and I want to look deeper? I want to challenge previously held conceptions, right? Those are two different processes. I guess to get a base level of knowledge, I have a lot of reference books, and, bigger history books. Not like, Societies in Colonial North Carolina. I have, concise histories of the United States, right? I have books like that. And so, if I'm making a history and lore video on the First Great Awakening, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at my Concise History of the United States book that I've read, or that I've looked through, and I can trust this source. I have that. I think I have 2 different concise histories of the United States. I have those 2 sources. I have one book about society in colonial America, right, which would be the same time period as the First Great Awakening would happen inside that time period, so I have that. So I have the American perspective, and the First Great Awakening was a religious movement, so maybe I should look at some religious sources. So I have, for example, Father Thomas Hopko. He did the 4-volume Orthodox catechism. We used it as a catechism when I was a catechumen. But the 3rd volume is church history, and he doesn't go into just Orthodox church history, but he also goes into history of all of Christianity. So I can look through that as my reference point for understanding the First Great Awakening, and it does reference the First Great Awakening. Maybe if I have like a Lutheran history book somewhere in there, a Methodist history book somewhere in there, because I know that that's connected to the First Great Awakening, I'll get that. I have a friend that is really well versed in Protestant history, Protestant American history, and so I'll meet with him. By the way, I think the next Symbolism of Transformers video, he's going to be in that video. So I'll talk to him, sort of reference, just sort of have a conversation with him about, is this right? Is this conception I hold of the movement an accurate representation of the movement, right? I'll do that. I'll take notes. I do my note-taking in Notion. I do everything in Notion, actually. I do my script writing in Notion. And then in Notion, once I have all my notes, I will organize those notes by themes, by concepts, by chronology, and then I'll put it together into a research script, right, for the video. If I'm wanting to do something more, if I already have a base knowledge of something, but I want to know something more. I want to know something deeper. I want to look at it from a different perspective. I want to challenge a conception I already hold of the event, and I want to make sure that conception holds water, right? Then what I do is, usually I'll find more deeper sources I trust, and sort of look at it, compare my notes. Usually I already have notes on the subject. Compare my notes with the new information I have. If there's something in the new sources that I read that are completely 100% against what I've already thought I knew from multiple other sources, I do deep diving to see if other sources say similar things. If they don't, then I ignore it. If they do, it's like, oh, that's probably need to change my notes, right? And my Notion is filled with notes on all sorts of different events and topics and people. But that's sort of what I do. I hope that answers your question, Common X. Transformers English Entertainment Studio says you should just stockpile videos. I should. I kind of do. The thing is, the stockpile runs out, right? And when I stockpile videos, I tend to, like, stop working. Like, I make a video, and, like, great. Now I don't have to work on another video again until that video comes out, just psychologically. So I'll do that from time to time. Cybertron Convoy says America. Samuel Meyer says Richard Weaver, noted. Cybertron Convoy, explain how Trump will save America. Are we interested in hearing me talk about that? Does anyone else in chat want to hear about that? If no, then maybe it might be best I skip that. That's a topic that I can get way off track into. I could be talking about that for hours, so I don't want to... Oh, we have a yes. We have a yes. We have a yes. Do we have other yeses? How many people are watching? Have you watched Kamen Rider? I have not watched Kamen Rider. Oh, we have 7 viewers. That's actually quite a bit more than usual. Okay, so will Trump save America? Save is a strong word when we consider the fact that as a Christian, I believe we are in a fallen world. And I believe that there might be ups, but there's definitely going to be downs. So when we use the word save, we have to keep in mind that from my perspective, there is one savior, right? And that one savior is going to be this guy over here, over this little Jesus Christ I have over here. So save is a strong word. Do I think he will be beneficial for America? It depends on what you mean by beneficial. It depends on what you mean by... I'm doing a Jordan Peterson here. Well, that depends on what you mean by... What do you... You've seen the clips where, like, people ask Jordan Peterson if he believes in God, and he's like, well, that depends on what you mean by the question. What do you mean by you? What do you mean by believe? What do you mean by God? It's like, wow. I feel like that was a fairly accurate Jordan Peterson voice impression. What do you mean by you? Nobody's laughing in the chat. People are like, Radix, what are you doing? Just answer the question. How will Trump save America? Do you know any Japanese philosophy or how that shapes their story writing? I know Japanese philosophy, right? How it shapes their story writing, that's an interesting question. Good impression. Thank you, PlushieDX. How does Japanese philosophy affect their story writing? And this is, like, it depends on the writer, right? Different Japanese writers are going to pull from different parts of Japanese philosophy. One creator might be more Shinto inspired. I think Hayao Miyazaki was heavily inspired by Shinto, right? Buddhism is going to be, and when I say Buddhism, I mean Mahayana Japanese Buddhism, is going to be pretty important to other writers, right? And then we have to understand that a lot of Western philosophy influences modern day Japanese writers. Nihilism is actually pretty popular, although nihilism and Buddhism can go hand in hand pretty well. But nihilism is pretty popular in Japan. Postmodernism, especially today, these are Western philosophies. How does that shape their story writing? Hayao Miyazaki's emphasis on living in harmony with nature and the dominance of nature is definitely influenced by Shinto ideas on harmony with nature. I can say that. That's an example. And the problem is, am I well versed with modern Japanese literature? I'm not that well versed in modern Japanese literature to give a solid answer. I'm more well versed in the philosophy than I am in the modern literature. I've watched a lot of anime, and I can tell you, anime, that's a big bunch of things. But anime tends, at least the ones I watch, tend to draw more heavily on Western philosophy, things like nihilism, things like postmodernism. A lot of traditional Japanese philosophies are seen as very old-fashioned. I would say Japanese literature writers. There's a better word than literature writer. Literature authors. I would say Japanese authors tend to, from what I know, tend to flock towards Western philosophies when they write. They might include some Japanese folk themes, but the philosophies are going to be mostly Western, I think. For instance, I've been looking up Japanese story structure and saw that they had their own story structure similar to our version of, to our own Western 3-act structure called Kishoten Kitsu. Kishoten Kitsu. Kishoten Kitsu. Yeah, I don't know about that. Can't tell you about that, man. But if it's similar, it's similar. Look at when it began. When did Kishoten Kitsu start, right? If it's after the Meiji period, it's highly likely it's heavily influenced by Western philosophy, more so than Japanese philosophy. In fact, let's look that up. Kishoten Kitsu. Traditional style. Structures of many Chinese, Korean narratives. In China, it is called Qi Cheng Zhuanghe. It was used in Chinese poetry. Is it poetry or is it fiction writing? Start, introduction, meant handling, turn, result. The thing is, plot structure and philosophies are different, right? Introduction, development, twist, conclusion. I wouldn't say that's much different to the 3-act structure. Contrary to thought, the structure is not the same as the popular US and European derived 3-act structure. For example, transitions can be anything from a sentence to a full paragraph, which contrasts to the 5-paragraph essay. Full paragraph, it contrasts with... One sentence is encouraged for all transitions rather than a full paragraph. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really speak to that. Oh. What? I don't want to make you moderator. Why is that popping up? What's going on here? Okay. Transformers English Entertainment Studios. I'm Torah observant, and I can't remember exactly what my teacher said, but he said that in the east side of the world is where it's at. He said that the east side of the world is where it's at. Yeah, so I recommend, if you haven't watched my video on Radix the Lore Keeper, sort of understanding the difference between East and West, I think the very first video I uploaded to that channel is a good explanation about the fundamental differences between the East and West. Are we still interested in the Trump question? Cybertron Convoy, I imagine my answer was not satisfactory. Are we still interested in hearing about the answer to that question? Yes, okay. So, back to, it depends on what we mean by save, what we mean by America, what we mean by Trump. Okay, that was worse. That was a worse impression. If what you mean by America is the propositional... Oh, I don't want to go that far. If what you mean by save America means improve the American economy, and you mean short term, I would be hesitant to expect that. I would be hesitant to expect immediate short-term economic prosperity based on what I have seen, on what he has said he wants to do, and if he can do that. it will result in actually some pretty hard, I'd imagine, pretty hard a difficult economic climate at the beginning of his administration, because basically the founding point of this administration is going to be deporting illegal immigrants. The United States, especially compared to here in Japan, is insane when it comes to how many illegal immigrants are in the country and embedded in its labor force. The economy is not going to do well with, if he does what he says he wants to do, with the mass deportation of the illegal immigrants. Now, do I think the economy is the end-all, be-all of society? No, I do not. Trump has said, has it been Trump or someone else in his administration, that at this point in time, there is no price tag you can put on the deportation of illegal immigrants because it has become such a significant crisis. So, is the economy going to be going through some difficult times? Very likely, immediately. Is that going to last forever? No. Will there be prosperity after that? I'd imagine so. Trump himself has hired illegal immigrants for his businesses. Yes, he has. And if he does what he says he's going to do, they're going to be going, right? You can't really blame someone with playing the game when that was the rules of the game and set up. You can eventually get rid of the game. Okay? So, if we mean, will there be a beneficial Trump administration for the American people, labor-wise? I'd imagine probably. Because we're going to have a huge exodus of a lot of people that are occupying jobs in the job force. Okay? Plus, we have to remember that he's going to be following economic policies that are aiming at bringing industry back, especially to places like the Rust Belt. That'll be a godsend. That would be great, right? But I want you to keep an eye on the people who said they supported Trump, but like their main idea, the main point of them supporting Trump is the economy. Because I have a hunch that they are not going to be happy in the first part of his administration, of this second administration, right? So, there's that. I think he has a lot of people on his team that are going to do good things to cut down some redundant parts of the American government. You have Elon Musk in there, and we saw how he cut down the administration of X. I am very, very excited for, and I didn't think I'd be excited for it, but I'm very excited for, what's his name? What is his name? Robert Kennedy Jr., who, I saw his video recently on, what was it, like the yellow dye that's put in foods? Like, that was a great video. No, like, schizo online who talks about seed oils has ever made me really understand the dangers of the chemicals in the foods than what Kennedy did in his video there. That was a great video. I think him having some authority over how American foods are produced is going to be a godsend for the American people. I think that will be great. Interested to see where Tulsi Gabbard will be placed. I've seen a lot of people saying they want her for, like, Senate leader. And I'm like, okay, calm down, guys. Have you watched Matt Walsh, and is there anything you disagree with him on? I haven't watched much Matt Walsh. I tend to not watch Daily Wire people in general. But from what I have seen of the Daily Wire people, Walsh tends to be the one I agree with the most. But again, I haven't watched too much of Matt Walsh. I haven't watched Walsh. Okay. But yeah, overall, I think one of the best things that could come out of the Trump administration is just putting a pause on everything that was going on in the Biden administration and preventing radical measures that the Democratic Party, members of the Democratic Party, have wanted to push through. I think that's one of the biggest points for Trump. Okay. And also, what an impressive swing. Have you guys seen the map of showing like the swing of just how red the United States was in this election? That was crazy. That was impressive. Okay, how are we doing? Any other questions? Any other comments? Any other concerns? Oh, I definitely liked, I saw Trump's video on what he wanted to do for free speech. Brilliant all around. The Digital Bill of Rights, perfect. That all sounds really good. And it's funny, you know, if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, I would probably say something along the lines of, I don't think politics is really what I should be talking about on this channel. However, I think the times have changed significantly. And one of the main themes of this channel going forward is that there are things that are important. You saw this with my consumer video. Like, I saw a Rodimus Primo tweet. Not tweet, post on X. About how it's like during the election he said, I'm tired of I don't want to see politics, I just want to post about Transformers. And I'm like, dude, there are things that are important. There are things that matter, right? And even if you hold the idea that I don't want to talk about politics, I want to talk about Transformers, okay, then just talk about Transformers. You're not talking about Transformers when you do that. You're talking about, ironically, on a meta level, you're talking about politics. It's ironic in a way. It's like, like, there are things that matter. Let the adults talk about the things that matter. And if you, in your consumer brain, don't like it, want to talk about Transformers, just post about Transformers and shut up. Like, why do you have to add that, I don't want to talk about politics, I want to talk about Transformers? No one cares. No one cares, dude. Any non-history books that you liked recently? I mean, technically this isn't a history book, it's more of a philosophy book. But The Southern Tradition at Bay has been a great book. I am definitely talking about this book when I talk about my favorite books I read in 2024. Yukio Mishima's Sun and Steel, also a philosophy book that I really liked. It was the book that convinced me that working out is actually good and actually cool. Let's see. The Agony of the Church by St. Nikolai Velimirovich was pretty good. Yeah, mostly when I'm not reading history. Actually, these days I probably read more philosophy than I read history. And I know my camera is getting blurry. I don't know if we're fixing this. Besides Transformers, is there any piece of fiction that you like a lot and engage on a similar level? Elder Scrolls. I love the Elder Scrolls. At this point in time, I probably love the Elder Scrolls more than I like Transformers. Look, okay. If you had told me in 2015, when I was starting the Transformers lore videos, if you had told me that the multiverse was going to end that year, I probably would not have made a Transformers YouTube channel. Probably wouldn't have done it. The problem is I made it because I wanted to talk about how great the multiverse is, and once I made it, the multiverse died, and now I was kind of stuck in a bit of a conundrum, bit of a pickle, right? And I think at this point for Commander Radix, it's too late for me on this channel at least to change course. I've tried before, that didn't work. That's why Radix the Lore Keeper is on a different channel now. But Elder Scrolls, I love the Elder Scrolls. I only hope Elder Scrolls 6 is good because at this point in time, everything I love becomes crap. Like, I really love Star Wars. We all know what happened to Star Wars. I really love DC Comics, especially Batman. But nowadays, comics are kind of lame. DC not so much, but there is a lot of lameness in comics today. Do you read fantasy? No, but I want to. I should. The most recent fiction novel I read was the first book in the Witcher series, but I didn't like it. I definitely want to read more fiction. I heard Brandon Sanderson, if that's his name, I've heard that he's pretty good. I think it's Mistborn, and I do hope at some point to read Mistborn. But I'm not an avid reader of fantasy. I love the fantasy genre, and I like the idea of reading fantasy. I just don't read fantasy that much. But the Elder Scrolls is fantasy, and I love the Elder Scrolls. Like, not a day goes by where I don't listen to the Skyrim soundtrack. If you might have noticed that the main font I use in my videos is Futura, which is the font that's used in the text in the Skyrim game. So, yeah, I love the Elder Scrolls. I love the Lord of the Rings. I love the Tolkien universe. I'm not in-depth knowledgeable on them. I know a lot about Elder Scrolls, though. The problem is, do I really want to make an Elder Scrolls lore YouTube channel? Because there's like 50 Elder Scrolls lore YouTube channels. A lot of old fantasy tend to get pretty philosophical themselves, weaving it into the narratives. Right, yeah. Fantasy is a top genre. I think it's the next... I'm going to give you a spoiler, Common X, but when we get to the end of the Symbolism of Transformers series, the conclusion of the Symbolism of Transformers is basically going to be that fantasy is the best genre. That's ultimately what it's going to be. Transformers English Entertainment Studios, last question, then I'm off to bed. Do you think that maybe Christianity is half wrong because off mid-translations and old lies from people who benefit from the lies? I do not. I believe Christianity is 100% true. Now, do I think Protestantism can get off track because of it? Yes, right. Do I think Roman Catholicism has been built on a few lies? Yes. But do I think Orthodox Christianity... Do I think the Orthodox Catholic Church, in its essence, is false? No. I don't think a single bit of it is false. Because Christ created a church, and Christ said he would protect that church. He would guide that church. That's the role of the Holy Spirit in the church. And the thing is, look, in the Orthodox Church, we don't even have, like, a solid... There's an asterisk mark on this, but we don't have a consolidated canon on Scripture, right? The Catholics and the Protestants will argue about, oh, is this book part of the Bible? Is this book part of the Bible? Right? Well, this book has this part in it, so maybe it's not really part of the Bible. The Orthodox Church doesn't have a solid, like, a 100% list of this is the Scriptures. There's generally a consensus, but for example, I believe there's, like, one book that's in the Scriptures of the Russian Orthodox Church that is not in the Greek Orthodox Church, but we are still the Orthodox Church, regardless, right? The religion doesn't lie in the quality of translation. The faith does not lie in the Scriptures alone. The faith lies in the church. The faith lies in Jesus Christ, the Holy Triune, the Triune God, right? The Holy Spirit, which guides the church and keeps the church, right? So mid off, is it half wrong because of mid translations? The translations don't really matter. It's how the church has received what the scriptures are saying that matters. That's a big difference between the Orthodox Church and Protestantism, right? So Protestants will argue over what is the meaning of this scripture verse. Well, this word says this. Oh, but if you go into ancient Greek, it says this. Oh, but the Hebrew, which it's reflecting, says this, and it has this list of possible meanings, right? We don't do that nonsense in the Orthodox Church. We say, here is a scripture verse, okay? Here is a line of tradition from the apostles to today of hierarchs in the church that have, for the most part, these interpretations of that verse. And so, because the tradition is witnessing to this verse meaning this, we are going to submit our intellect, our will, to the tradition. Because in one of the epistles, as St. Paul says, we have the mind of Christ. We being the church, right? Being the Christians, the church, right? And because we have the mind of Christ, and we, again, this has to go into, you know, a Protestant will say we means we, like, oh, me and other people. But an ancient mindset would say we is referring to a body as a group. It's not about an individual, right? So because we have the mind of Christ, we know what the verses are saying because it has been witnessed to in the tradition of the church, right? Now, can there be lies that people benefit from? Yes, but also we know that the Holy Spirit protects the church. He guides the church. Will there be people who lie in high places? Yes, right? That's, you know, we're in a fallen world. But the church itself is guided by the Holy Spirit. The way the Orthodox Church does not have a mechanism for someone to go in and take control over things that benefit them, right? The Orthodox Church has tradition, and we look to the tradition so that even if someone, you know, makes a lie and tries to get more power, you know, let's say, you know, one example is indulgences, right, that we see in the Catholic Church in the Middle Ages, right? And we don't, not to get into the debates about the nitty-gritty of indulgences, but indulgences is usually the example of, you know, hierarchs creating a lie to make people do something that they can get power for, right? The Orthodox Church doesn't have a mechanism for that because it's kind of impossible for someone to introduce a new doctrine into the Orthodox Church. Okay, so no, I do not think Christianity is half wrong. Now, if you mean Christianity by including Protestantism and Roman Catholicism, then maybe we can talk about that. I do think that those are wrong, part wrong, because I'm not a Protestant, I'm not a Roman Catholic. I love my Protestants, I love my Roman Catholics, I love you all, you're all wonderful, you're all gorgeous, you're all beautimous, but I am an Orthodox Christian in the Orthodox Catholic Church, right? What translation of the Bible you think is most right? Again, this goes into my point. We don't really have that sense of most right, a most right scripture. There are some that are off, right? There are some that are weird, right? I know I've run into some Japanese translations of the Bible that get really weird, but look, I can tell you what I use. It depends on what purpose, right? The Bibles I have that I use regularly. I have the NIV, I have the KJV, I have the NRSV, Catholic edition, and I have the Orthodox Study Bible, right? And the Orthodox Study Bible, right, is a translation from the Septuagint. It's not from the Masoretic text. Right, we have to think about a lot of the Bibles we have today are being translated from the Masoretic text, which is a Jewish text written, I believe, after Christ, right? And the sort of idea is, well, this is what the Hebrews are saying. Christianity is coming from the faith of the Hebrews, so we should use what the Hebrews are saying versus the Septuagint text, which is Greek, right? And that wouldn't be the language that Jesus would be speaking, blah, blah, blah. But in the Orthodox Church, we understand the Septuagint as being pretty important. Not to say that the Masoretic text is unimportant, right? I see some people go that, you know, there's a lot of Orthodox people who go too far saying, oh, the Masoretic text isn't reliable, you can only use the Septuagint text. But we tend to give priority to the Septuagint, okay? So what translation of the Bible you think is most right? I don't think of Bible translations like that. Whichever is most in line with the tradition of the church. Not that it's related, but I know the creator of Ultraman was Catholic, I think, which is what led to a lot of religious imagery in Ultraman. Possibly. Ultraman. I think at least one of the creators of Ultraman also was from a town nearby where I live, on the same island I live. You see a lot of Ultraman stuff over here. Which led to a lot of it showing up in other Japanese media inspired by Ultraman like Evangelion. Yeah, the fact of the matter is, to the Japanese mindset, a lot of Christian aesthetics look cool. So they're going to use it quite a bit. Yeah. Okay, Transformers English Entertainment Studios, did that answer your question? Is he here? Did he go to bed? Man, it's been a long time since it's been a long time since I've streamed. Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? Any other concerns? Anything else we want to talk about? I know it's been a while since I've been on screen. By the way, follow me on X if you have not yet. I'm going to be pretty active on there. Follow me on Instagram. I plan to be more active on there as well. I just posted today about a new announcement, which is that the Radix the Lorekeeper channel is now on Rumble as well. So if you want to look at content that's not on YouTube, because I agree that YouTube is kind of a weird company, then you also have alternative options. I am also considering working on putting the Commander Radix channel up on Rumble as well, so you'll have that available to you as well. We also have a BitChute. The BitChute's kind of iffy when it uploads something and when it doesn't, but the BitChute is available as well. I just recommend, if you're into alternative platforms for content, Rumble is probably the best place for me, because I can upload much easier there. Okay. Last one for me. What's your favorite movie besides Star Wars? Okay, for one, Star Wars is not... I was thinking of making a video about my favorite movies. I don't know which one is my #1 favorite, but Gods and Generals is pretty high up there. The Northman is pretty high up there. 1917 is pretty high up there. Joker is pretty high up there. Her, there's a movie called Her. That's a pretty good movie. I really liked Her. The Lord of the Rings movies are pretty good. Trying to think of what movies I've watched lately. The Last Samurai, Silence. Those are two very good movies set in historical Japan. Letters from Iwo Jima is pretty good. I meant movies leaving out Star Wars. Yeah, like, if you had asked me what my favorite movies were, Star Wars would not be on the list. Star Wars would not be even close to my favorite movies. So you didn't even need to add that besides Star Wars. Yeah, those are Letters from Iwo Jima. Der Untergang is pretty good. The Downfall. The movie about Hitler dying in his last days. Yeah, so lately probably the Northman. Good night. Okay, good night. Wow, all right. The Island. The Island's pretty good. The Russian movie. Okay. Did we lose everyone in chat? Anyone else still here? We have 5 viewers. Any other final questions, comments, concerns before I end the stream here today? The main points I wanted to say is videos will be coming out whenever they come out. Maybe some filler videos here and there, but my goal is quality, not quantity. So that's my main idea. that I wanted to share with you, that I'm not dead. I'm also trying to consolidate, well, not decentralize the Commander Radix community off of YouTube. So because I might not upload much on YouTube, I do highly recommend you follow me on X. X might be the center of the Commander Radix community going forward. But we also have the Discord server. I want to make changes on the Discord server. I just don't know how to. The Discord server is kind of dead. I would appreciate if people could go down there and bring it back to life. But yeah. Okay. Then, if there are no final questions, comments, or concerns, I'm going to end the stream off here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Check out all the social media links. You can go to X and find my link tree there that has all my links to everything I have. And have a great day, ladies and gentlemen. How do I do this?